Welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host, Scotty McCoy, and boy, do I have a surprise for all of you. I have on Zoom with me right now Marian Sing, and she played Andrea Wagner in Halloween 2018. But that's not all she did. She also did the stunts in the movie. She was a part of the stunt team. How you doing, Marian?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that we can make this happen. I know my good friend Greg Gilbert, who you did an interview with on Python's Paradise, he passed me along your contact and I reached out and you said, yeah, I'll absolutely do the interview. And I'm like, that's awesome. I love this movie. And I'm a big Halloween fan. So I'm so excited to do this.
I'm happy to do it. Anytime I can reach out and talk to Halloween fans or any fans in general, just people that love movies and things that we do, I just love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first question I got for you, how did you get your start into acting and in stunts?
Well, I've been acting since I was 3 years old, actually. I was in a little play group. So it always starts with theater. And then I've always, everything that I knew how to do, you would starve at singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, and
Yeah.
acting, the whole thing. It's always, you better have a backup plan. So I've been doing all of that since as early as I can remember.
Mhm.
And I got involved in the local independent film crowd
Yeah.
uh, in my hometown. And they said, well, have you looked into Atlanta? They're blowing up right now. And it was just when people were starting to invest and build sound stages in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, heck, okay, let me look into that. So I went onto a web page on Facebook that was a casting page, and it was for extras, background people. They're synonymous. Background is extras.
Mhm.
So I submitted for one of the listings, and they called me back in the next 10 minutes. And they were like, it was for athletic men and women, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's me. So I submitted for it and they said, can you come for a fitting on Monday? And it was Friday then. And I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I had to get down to Atlanta, which is about, 3.5 hours away. And that was the first decision I had to make. And I thought to myself, okay, are you ready to do this? Because, Atlanta's big, Atlanta's coming. And I said, yes, I can. And I just, at that point, I got down there and I was in my first production, which was Mockingjay 2, Hunger Games. And I was with 1,500 of my best friends,
Yeah.
all of us background extras. We were just sitting in a fiber optics factory waiting to be pulled into this huge set that was box cars, like 5 box cars tall. And they were covered in green screen fabric. And they had all these really cool military vehicles and these, I don't know if you've seen the erosion control cement
Okay.
weird shape things. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I know what you're
They
talking
had
about. Yeah.
those. Yeah, they had those. And so we were placed, I happened to be near the stunt team.
Nice.
So I got to follow them when they were doing their thing, and I heard them talking and all of this. And so after listening to them, I decided to try to talk to them. I didn't know if they would talk back because here I am, lowly, lowly
Right.
extras.
Mhm.
And they said, no, 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 yeah, sure, blah, 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 and it got me kind of interested. So after seeing them work through a day and then me working and, kind of following their lead, it was basically a no-brainer at that point. They moved us on because it's hard to find reliable extras, reliable background people.
Yeah.
So they just move you from production to production to production. So if any of you guys want to have some fun, then get involved in extras casting, get involved in that. And as long as they can rely on you, that you will be in tons of movies and you might just be able to point to you and say, there I am to your friends.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of actors get their start as background extras.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You learn when you go and you start at that level, it's
Mhm.
mostly so you can get the terminology and you can hear the way that the industry works. You can see how things work, when you should get the heck out of the way. They're bringing this big crane and they're moving this light baffle that could crush everybody. So get that, stay where you're told to be and be available within earshot and things like that.
Yeah.
And you'll work. You'll just go from production to production, but that's where most people start is
Yeah.
being background. And through that, my second gig that I did was Insurgent, the sequel to Divergent. And we had to go through a boot camp audition to get that one. Now that's where I met my good friend Alessandro Foquito, and he and I have Action ATL. It's our stunts and educational training company where we teach actors and stunt people how to move authentically, tactically. And I also do script analysis, character development. You know, I can teach actors how to be authentic in their roles. So we decided that we were going to come together, and as many people as could hold together, we would become partners in this and just go from there. And that's kind of where I am today. We just finished a production called Keeping Secrets.
Nice.
And it was Action ATL. I got to be assistant stunt coordinator, fight choreographer, and Alessandro is the stunt coordinator. But I'm looking into becoming a stunt coordinator myself. It's really hot right now to have female stunt coordinators. So, you know, if that's the way things go, I'll go.
Absolutely. And I mean, stunts are a very important part of filmmaking. And I mean, not just for, you know, showing so the actors don't get hurt, but for safety, you know, regarding fight sequences. Like, you need to make sure that everything is done safely, because if anybody gets hurt, that can not only hurt the actor, but it'll also hurt the film.
Yes, correct. That's most of what we do is safety. When I'm choreographing fights, it is, what do they know how to do? Do we need a double? You know, and things of that nature. Because if you go showing an actor something and then they pull a muscle, well, how long are they going to be out? And production is out, and then everybody's out, and then you're just sitting around and you feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
So everything that we do is geared toward making sure that actors are comfortable and pulling in doubles where necessary, so that the actor themselves doesn't have to risk anything. That it's whenever there's an action sequence, bring in the double. I don't know if you've heard that one. It's like, bring in the double.
Yep, absolutely.
But that's what we do in Action ATL. And honestly, it's nice to know at the end of the shoot when the actors come up to you and they were like, we felt comfortable the whole time, we felt safe, and we, you know, make sure that every production that we're involved with has that realm of safety, security, and making the actors feel like they can do what they do naturally. And I've gotten to do a little bit more acting in this production, so if you want to catch me in that, I think October that one comes out. But it's just really cool to be able to help friends of mine in their productions, and that's what Keeping Secrets is. It's being made by a director, producer, good lord, writer. I mean, she does everything. Her name is Omega Keys, and she's with About Face Media. And so to be able to help her, I think I've been in practically, except for the documentaries, I've been in every production that she has.
Nice.
So I'm like, sure, I'll show up.
That's awesome. So when that comes out in October, where can that be viewed?
It'll probably be on Amazon, a couple other streaming platforms.
Nice. Awesome.
You know, but there's some really interesting stuff coming up in the independent film world. And a lot of times actors will go to the independent film world instead of these big studio productions and all that stuff, just because you can play, you can create, you can kind of wander around in the character a little bit more. You can create backstory, and you really have a lot more leeway in a lot of times. And I kind of like that freedom. I mean, I'm all about being in big studio productions, don't get me wrong, but to be able to contribute something and have it not just disappear into the morass of gigantic production is pretty cool.
Yep, I have a small indie film company called Gravestone Films, and we're in post production for our third feature film. And a lot of our actors, I mean, we don't have any big named actors, but even our actors, we have a lot of locals actors, and a lot of the actors like that because they get to give their insight. Hey, I think my character would be good doing it this way, or be good doing this, or can I say that? And it's like, your input is valuable because we're not held down by big box New Line Cinema or Paramount Pictures or Blumhouse. Like, you know, you're your own company or your own organization, and that's what indie films have. That's why a lot of actors like Felissa Rose do the indie films, because allows them to be creative and give their expertise to an indie production without being bogged down by the the big box office
For
companies.
sure, for sure. And that's also just a little heads up. That's the last time you will see me with the full length Halloween 2018 hair. This just happened on Sunday.
I
So
was just gonna say, I really like the hairstyle.
thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Absolutely.
It's a lot
Yep.
of fun. And, I've had that long hair for so long. It was time for a change. And
Yep.
I think sometimes things can go from being a trademark of yours
Yeah.
and they can become a burden.
Yeah.
And it was just time for a change. And
Sometimes
I
that
kind
can
of
end
did.
up typecasting you, the long blonde haired girl. You know what I mean? It's like change it up. Now I can do different roles.
Yes, very much so. And I'm liking it. It reminds me of
Yeah.
earlier in life when I was telling Python,
Mhm.
I was saying, I used to be in a band, and this reminds me of the band days. I feel like, so it's kind of a flashback to that. But it's just sometimes you got to change things up. And even if you're
Mhm.
going back to a previous vibe or feel, it can rejuvenate you and it can really give you a fresh start
Yeah.
in any goals or paths you want to walk. So I try to
Absolutely.
keep things fresh with that.
Absolutely. So how did you land the role of Andrea Wagner and being, involved with the stunts for Halloween?
Yeah. Well, the I was driving home from Atlanta after
Mhm.
doing a stunt gig, and I got a phone call. And when I answered it, I was going through the dead zone in the middle of the Tennessee, Chattanooga, Georgia. There's a place where there's no cell phone coverage at
Ooh,
all. And I got a phone call, and I answered the phone, and it was a stunt legend. His name is Ron Hutchison,
okay.
and he asked if for availability. And whenever a coordinator asks for availability, you say yes, and
Right.
you just say
Yeah.
yes because that means it's a job.
Yep.
So he was asking me if I had availability, and I said, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever you need." And then, oh, it, uh, oh no, the call disconnected. I was dying. Oh my god! And I was like speeding to get through the dead zone, and I was like, "No!" So I got through the dead zone, and I called him back, and thank goodness he answered because usually they'll just go to the next name on the list. If
Hmm.
anything happens, they'll go to the next name on the list. But he said, "What happened to your connection?" I'm like, "I'm driving through the mountains. I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm back." And he said, "Yeah, it's going to be in Charleston. Is that okay with you?" "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." And so when I got to the rehearsal in Charleston, it's like they put you up in a hotel
Hmm.
and then you're told where to go for the rehearsal.
Right.
Well, the rehearsal was on that street in the Gaslight District in Charleston where they filmed the
Hmm.
scene. We
Right.
were rehearsing on location. So I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. That's nice. Okay. Historic zone. I live in a historic zone in my city." So it
Yeah.
was like, I know all this. Okay. Looks like every other one of these that I've been in. Okay, yeah. And I see further down, I have to walk down the street, but I
Mhm.
see at the address where we're supposed to meet, that's where I saw Marian Green. And
Nice.
it's funny, my name is Marian Sing. Her name is Marian Green. She's a whole lot more of a legend than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But she killed Mr. Orange in Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
So she's the woman that dies by the hammer.
Ooh,
Mrs.
okay. Yes.
Elrod 2.0. Mrs.
Yes.
Elrod 2.0.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
she's the one, yeah, she's the one that died by the hammer. And her scene was supposed to be a little different. And my scene could have been a little bit different too when we were doing rehearsals. We went over a couple of different ways of doing things.
Hmm.
So I was talking to her. I had met her before. We had been to some stunt some lectures, and we
Hmm.
became pretty good friends. And then here comes this guy, this youngish guy. It turned out to be David Gordon Green. And the first thing he said was, "You killed Mr. Orange," to Marion Green. And she's like, "Yeah, I sure did." I mean, it was crazy. I was witnessing this. And
Nice.
so I've got stunt legend Ron Hutchinson, stunt legend Marion Green, and I got David Gordon Green standing right here, right? I mean, come on, it was nuts.
Hmm.
So we went in, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what production this is. I have no idea. I just know that there's stunts involved, and there's going to be some pretty cool people to work with. So we walk into the house where I die. We walked into that house, And we see, there's props laying around, and things like this. And I'm like, okay, well, and here comes this oldish guy, this crazy tall, 6'4", older gray guy. And I'm like, am I fighting him? What's going on? I had no idea it was James Jude Courtney.
Okay.
And so we decided to go through some stuff. How do you want to do this? What do you think? Ba 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 ba. And we went through some movement, and David Gordon Green says, I don't know, that's a little too Michael. I mean, that's a little too Jason.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, horror genre, okay. And I was like, okay, I'm getting little breadcrumbs here as
Like
to
putting
what I'm
the
going to
pieces
do.
up to a puzzle together.
Yes. So the pieces are slowly falling into place here. I'm like, to Jason. Okay, so it's got to be one of the big guys if he brought up Jason.
Right.
So I was like, I can't see this guy being Freddy. I mean, that's not that they can't be making a new Freddy at this age. That just doesn't make any sense.
And it's not Friday the 13th at this point because it's a little too Jason.
That's right. So we go through some choreography stuff, and we arrive at what happens in the film. But there was another version, just so you know.
Okay.
And so I'm heading back to the hotel, and they're like, okay, we'll have a fitting for you, blah, blah, blah. We got to figure out your wardrobe. Okay, cool. So I'm headed back to the hotel, and I got a phone call when I get back to the hotel. No, it was an email. I got an email.
Okay.
And when I got back to the hotel, I was checking it. The next day they want you to come and they want you to get fitted. Now, when you get fitted, they try on a bunch of different stuff. They have an idea of who your character is, even before I did. And, you try on different stuff that, and then they try to figure out what looks like what they want you to be.
Right.
So the email was like, yeah, does this time work for you? We can see you between this and this. So we'll take you at 10:40 a.m., whatever it was. Okay, fine. At the bottom of the email, it said so-and-so, costume, costumes department. And then it said Agent Orange at the bottom. And I was like, okay, Orange. Okay. And then underneath that, further down underneath all her credentials, which were a mile long, Halloween.
Nice.
Ancient Orange, you think pumpkin. Okay. And then you think pumpkin, you think Halloween. So I went for my fitting, and when I got there on the night of filming, they took our scripts from us as soon as we were done. Yes. So, I mean, I wish I still had my script. It would have been really fun. But I got my script with my line, "Hey, Sally," the whole bit. And I'm going over it, and David Gordon Green's like, you don't have to stick with the dialogue too much. Just get the gist, just say whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then we had to time everything because it was that no cut, one take, and that was kind of a nightmare. It was a freezing cold night. All those poor kids, they had a hurricane fan so that the leaves would blow by. I mean, I felt so badly for everybody outside, but they did not turn on the heat inside so they could save the homeowner money. Ooh. So I was freezing inside. They were freezing outside. It was a crazy night.
Oh, that's crazy. So regarding the stunts, what did you do for the stunts in Halloween? Like, were you a stunt double, stunt coordinator, fight coordinator, deaths, anything with the death scenes? What was your responsibility for that?
Well, we went over the movement for my death in particular.
Okay.
Because it had to be done safely. And the couch had, they thought at first that there was going to be a different way of doing it. So they had new couch backs to put in the window. And what we wound up doing was just using the same couch because we didn't do the alternative version. So there was a gel pad that was put on the carving on the back of the couch that you see the back of through the window, right? And my job, my one job, you had one job. My one job was to aim the center of my forehead to the center of that gel pad. Okay. James Jude Courtney is 6'4". He's a gigantic guy. And my head going toward that pad was right in his range of motion, his natural range of motion. So what we did was we figured out a way to orchestrate the scene so that as I walk and then I turn and I go off camera and I'm talking to Sally on the phone, then as I'm walking back, he's coming in through the back door. I have to walk at a pace where I wind up with my eyes between these two slats of the blinds that you see in the film. We had to keep practicing that. So you make sure that your eyes are visible through the slats of the blinds. Right. And I had to time it so he's far enough behind so that as he comes, I would not have known that he was there. So my job was to orchestrate with him so that as things happen, it can be plausible, right? So I'm on the phone, walking away from giving out the last of the Halloween candy. I talk to her, killer on the loose. Oh my gosh, really? Right. So I walk toward the back of the house. And then as I walk back to make sure that the blinds are closed, because like, oh my gosh, I need to lock down the house, right?
Right.
And on my way back to the couch, he comes in as soon as he sees me turn that corner to come to this couch. As I put my knee on the couch, I reach out. This is something you guys couldn't see. I reach my back leg out straight because it has a hose attached to it. The hose gets attached by Chris Nielsen. Yes, the guy that did the mask. Yeah. And the makeup artist. Okay. He has a blood hose that he attaches to my leg. And then it's already primed, you you pump all the blood. It was already ready. I had a big silicone appliance on and there was a slit pre-done and there was a perforation in the hose where it'll come out, So I had to couch, one knee, other knee, feed that leg back so that he can hook up the hose. Meanwhile, I'm at the blinds looking through while I'm waiting to feel him tap my leg that the hose is in place. And then, and then here comes James Jude Courtney behind me. I had no warning as to when he was going to go for the grab.
So you get the authentic scare.
You do. Yep. So he does grab, pull, slam, pull, knife, throw.
Okay.
Now I had to land in the same place every time too, because there's already a camera there waiting to catch me.
Right.
So every time we did it, we wound up doing about 14 takes total. It was a lot. But it was 4 rehearsals, and then on the night, we did 11. Oh, so it was 15 times. 4 rehearsals, and then on the night we did 11 takes because if anybody missed their mark, if anybody was too slow to start, walking didn't go by the other person fast enough, nothing worked out because everything was just like an orchestra. You had James Jude Courtney going to Mrs. Elrod 2.0. She had to be walking out of the doorway as he was coming up so she wouldn't see him. And then he had to find her, and the altered version of the scene didn't happen. So we see, the hammer. We see the aftermath instead of what actually happened. And then he goes out, but as he's going out, I'm talking to the last of the kids on the front porch. So that as he walks down in between our houses, they got that cool shot, and they talked about this for a while, that shot of his shadow going past. They had to follow him with a light and the camera, and they had to follow him so that his shadow would cross as I was walking the other direction, so I don't see his shadow, okay?
Right.
So all that had to line up. And then, of course, our last part that we were responsible for, me leaving the room, turning the corner, coming back, heading toward the couch, him coming toward the couch. I look, blinds down, here he comes, pull, push, pull, throw. I land and don't move.
Wow.
So that the camera will not blur out because they cut, as soon as they say trick or treat, and that's when they cut. So that was basically, that was my responsibility to do with him.
That's awesome though. And I mean, your scene as well as the other Marian Green scene was very similar to the opening of the 1981 original Halloween too, because your character is the Alice and her character is the Mrs. Elrod. The only thing is
Mrs. Elrod didn't get killed. 2.0.
Yep, she just didn't get killed. That's the difference. But in this case, Mrs. Elrod 2.0 got killed.
Yes.
and then you're the Alice, and you got the knife and everything, just in a different location, of course. But
Yep.
you
And
were the
that was
neighbor.
intentional. That
Was
was
it?
intentional as a nod to the fans. It
Right.
was an Easter egg. They were like, we got to put as many love letters to the fans in here as we
Yep.
can. And they made an intentional choice to make this first foray back into the Halloween franchise
Hmm.
accessible to new fans, and
Yeah.
maybe not even horror genre fans. They
Yeah.
wanted it to be as accessible as an episode of NYPD Blue or
Right.
NCIS or
Yeah.
anything like that. So they wanted it to hit the horror fans
Yeah.
because they loved it, but they wanted to invite a
Mhm.
whole new audience of fans into the franchise.
Absolutely. And it's even funny because later on in the movie, they mention the name Mrs. Elrod right before Oscar gets killed. Or is it
That's
Mr.
right.
Elrod? One of them, but they mentioned it. And it was like,
That's
and
right.
it was their house. So I was like, whoa, mind blown.
Yep. The whole
Yep.
thing was just sprinkled
Yeah.
with love letters to all
Yeah,
the fans.
absolutely. I mean, I every time I go back and watch, I'm like, oh, there's that, and there's that. And, oh, I missed that. I can't believe that was actually in there. I noticed that, and
Yep.
I liked even where Michael Myers would always, stare at Laurie in the original one outside the schoolhouse. Well, this time they didn't do that. They did Laurie Strode in that position, and I was like, that's so freaking funny.
Yep. And it's as if to pass the torch, and that
Yep.
whole nod to
Yep.
there might have been, but there isn't, because
Yeah.
they decided to ignore the relationship. They decided to ignore
Yeah.
the brother sister,
Yep.
and just go straight from Halloween 1978 to
Yep.
40 years later.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
and honestly, I think that decision helped them to stay out of the mire
Yeah.
that was the lexicon of the timelines that go
Mhm.
crazy and all of that stuff. So I really believe that what they did was intentional,
Mhm.
and there were parts of it, there was too much comic relief, the kid
Yeah.
with the nasty ass toenails. And I mean, that kid was funny as hell, but a lot of fans didn't appreciate that they were trying to make it funny.
Yeah.
Kind of like when Freddy went funny in the Nightmare
Yeah.
on Elm Street movies.
Yep.
Some people really didn't appreciate that. It's like sell
Yeah.
out.
Right.
But once again, they were trying to recruit a whole new audience of fans.
Exactly.
And they decided to do that. Was the David Gordon Green input, was add a little comedy, a little dark comedy
Right.
to it. And the arts and crafts for Michael Myers and the way he chose to do the things he did. And
Yep.
it's looking back, there are a lot of things that could have been different.
Yeah.
And I understand why people had problems with it and a couple of reservations with it. But at the time, that it was the best compromise that they saw for inviting enough people and making horror accessible.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked because look how well it did in the box office. And then Halloween Kills comes out. Look how well that did in the box office. And now Halloween Ends is coming out, and I'm like dying for that to already come out. Like October 14th. Are you here yet?
Yes.
Have you seen Halloween Kills?
I try to stay on the outside so that it's fresh
Mhm.
when I go in, so that
Okay.
I can see what they were trying to do. I know some people that were in it,
Hmm.
but I told them not to tell me anything.
Okay.
So it'll be fresh for me too. I
Okay.
know a lot of
Awesome.
people that went to go see the previews and the focus groups and all that stuff, but
Right.
I told them don't tell me, just don't tell me.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you think was the hardest thing that you had to do for your death scene in Halloween 2018?
Aiming for that tiny little gel pad with my forehead. The last
Yeah.
take is the one they kept, and it is after a long night. It was like the sun was getting ready to come up, and we missed.
Ooh.
That clunk you hear on film was my head.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had a big old knot right here
Ooh.
on my
Yeah.
head. And that next morning, I had hands full of hair coming out because of grabbing the bun and the throwing and the
Wow.
pulling. So I filled the sink with hair that next morning, too.
Wow.
But
That's
Peter
crazy.
Jackson from Lord of the Rings fame has a saying. He says, pain is temporary, film is forever.
Wow. Yeah.
So you do what you need to do to make sure that it's going to turn out the best it can. You can
Yeah.
always lick your wounds later. And that's
Yeah.
especially true in stunts. That's especially
Absolutely.
true in stunts. But
Absolutely.
the orchestration was also a challenge
Yeah.
because it's like you need to make it not look like you're stretching a leg back there to get the hose. You need to make it
Yes.
not look like anything you're doing is, orchestrated.
Yeah.
It's just me getting off my day, just winding down for the night. And I was like, oh my God, you guys want me to have messy hair like this and the bun and the thing. And
Ooh.
oh, I feel sexy, you know. Um, but they were like, you've been giving out trick or treat candy all night. You're winding down for the night. I mean, yeah, sure. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty now. But it was all done with one thing in mind, and that was to get you guys to think that I'm safe.
Right.
I'm winding down at the end in my own home at the end of my night,
Yeah.
and what could go wrong?
Absolutely.
Well,
And
now we know.
we know what happened there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the last question I do got for you, do you have any other projects, films, or anything else that you would like to promote to the listening and viewing audience?
Well, I already told you about Keeping
Yep.
Secrets. There's also a romantic comedy that we premiered in June that
Okay.
it's in the backlog, stuck in the backlog at the um, streaming outlets called Fated Reunion,
Okay.
Fated, Fated Reunion. It's in a romantic comedy, and I'm a horrible person in that. I am so bad. I am the captain of the cheerleaders at the 10-year high school reunion.
Wow.
And I couldn't be more horrible. I'm a bad, bad person. I'm really not a good person in that. But it's the character roles that make it interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if I had my choice that I would choose to be the hero or something like that. They're kind of two-dimensional, but those character roles, they're juicy. You can really
Yeah.
get in there and you can figure out who you are, why you do what you do, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So those are
Absolutely.
the only things coming up. Now, Action ATL, we have some productions. We have a Chicago, a Minnesota, an Italy, and a couple more Atlantas,
Nice.
and things like that. So, keep up with our IMDb, and you'll be able to, my IMDb, it'll list it later. But a lot of this stuff is NDA, so they won't put it up.
Yeah.
But on my Instagram, Marian Sing, Facebook, Marian Sing, you can follow all the stuff because we slip hints every now and then
Awesome.
as to what we're doing and where we're going.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think that's about all we have. It's a lot,
That's
but
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
And I thank you so much for joining me. And I know I'll send you the link. If it's up to you if you want me to send it over email. I know you are on my Facebook as well, so I can send it that way. I'll tag you in it once I get the interview uploaded. But I thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, no problem. I
Yeah.
will share it on my page so that everybody can
Awesome.
find it.
Awesome. I thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much,
Yep.
and you as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.